It's been said, where there is water, there is life. But what happens when this life force impacts us negatively? This reality is faced by many during our hurricane season. When it rains heavily, Holetown, Sunset Crest and Porters are inundated, resulting in flooding. The government of Barbados and the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, have partnered to make Holetown and some surrounding areas flood resilient.
This area is prone to flooding due to water, due to the cross-section of Barbados. What happens is, inland in Barbados, we have a coral cap which lays on top of an oceanic layer of rock. And what then tends to happen is the water then comes towards the sea.
The watershed's natural path is to the ocean. Here at Sunset Crest, it would settle and gradually disperse. But the development of this once marshland has impeded the natural flow of the watershed. Through a program entitled AMSET, Adaptation Measures to Combat the Effects of Climate Change. One of these measures implemented is a channel made out of earth. The material from the center is removed and grass is planted. It's called a swale. It allows the water to flow.
In the area we're standing in, we have a grass swale. Now, as you would have come up the road in this area, you would see there was a grass swale before, and all here was flat. There wasn't any deviation in the land. What we would have done is, in this area specifically, we wanted to connect this watershed, where we're standing in right now, is just watershed 23A and watershed 23. So what we would have done is we would have built this grass swale and then a culvert in this area under the road to connect those two watersheds together. We also did some culverts out to the sea, some drainage channels, out to the sea, and that was allow us to convey the water. And right now there are 4 points we would have worked on down here, which would have been down here at watershed 23A to 23. Watershed 24, watershed 25, and watershed 28. Those are the watersheds that we've been working in as part of this project, along with watershed 26, but that was just some dredging work in the area.
Grass swales have been dug along the entire green belt, which stretches from Sunset Crest to opposite the Beach House restaurant. A great deal of preparation and work was done to alleviate the problem that flooding causes in homes, businesses and roadways. The water collected in the swales in front of the shopping complex flows through the newly laid culvert under the roadway, which is the entrance to Mayho Avenue that leads to the residential area and Sunset Crest shopping mall. Another important aspect of the AMSET project is the check dam. It acts as a control barrier for the watershed from as far as Rock Hall. The location of this dam at the base of the gully is crucial to controlling the force and the dispersion of the water by funneling it through the original dam.
We are currently at the check dam here at W25. The W25 is behind Cherry Avenue. We essentially are supposed to be stopping the water up in the gully before it gets down to the seafront or to the waterfront as best as we can. That way we can help slowly channel the water out rather than a big rush coming down through the gully. This is supposed to stop and collect as much water as possible and discharge it in a bit more of a ordinary manner. Check dam is about a 10-foot tall wall with its, as you can see behind me, a screen. That's to help protect and collect debris. Any sort of sticks or that come in the way, they'll stop here rather than choke up in the drain going down. Number of boulders that we have scattered along the front of these foundations of the walls to prevent any scouring from the water coming down and eating out the soil underneath.
The check dam has more than meets the eye. It also has underlying layers of compacted marl and geogrids. Geogrids are slope soil stabilizers. They can be used in soil reinforcement or in the reinforcement of retaining walls, which have all been utilized for this project. The dam has other interesting features as well.
We've installed the opening at the lowest point, and furthermore we have a drop down into the drain itself. So when the water comes and collects here, it will just drop down and go. We don't need the wing walls to guide it. Typically we'd have the wing walls to either guide it or stabilize the slope behind it. which you will see on the other jobs when we go to them. But essentially here the check dam wall is what was required to just stop the water and keep it at bay here and let it funnel out through this drain that goes down through Cherry Avenue and back out to Holetown.
With this hurricane season forecast to be a busy one, this dam is going to be very important. In addition to the check dam, ring walls and new culverts were installed and channels constructed or cleared.
There wasn't a channel at W28, which is between Coral Reef and Colony Club. That area was just a water course going into swampland. What we did is to increase that conveyance of the water to the sea. We put in a concrete channel between the two properties, just to allow that water to get out to sea. And we also we would have constructed a culvert under the road, as well as increase the capacity of the culvert upstream of the channel, upstream from the culvert across Highway 1.
Additionally, this channel is the longest starting from Porter's Great House Yard and finishing beyond Highway 1.
And that basically channel ran from there all the way up to the Porter's Great House. There was a number of different elements along that whole drainage way, starting with an earthen berm in Porter's Yard, coming down into an open channel through in between Trent Cemetery Road and Porter's Great House fence, going down through into a precast culvert. Then we raised the walls of the existing channel, then following out through the highway and out to the outfall in between Coral Reef and Colony Club.
And then there's a channel between Drift and Restaurant and Tide Restaurant that then carries the water out to sea to convey that water. What would have been there before would have been an earthen, would have been a small drain, which went out to a bigger drain, which was built under the Coastal Infrastructure Program under the auspices of the Coastal Zone Management Unit. What would have happened is that large drain at the mouth of the channel, that was actually the correct size. So what we did is we expanded the drain that we had between the two properties, and now we have a channel that goes out the street that is at the capacity necessary for that area.
These works are a huge undertaking, but none as large as Section 25.
That is the area by the Holetown Police Station, that complex, the drain to the north of that. Part of the reason why it was so much work was because of the size of the inlet drains coming in off the road. The road in the area then had to be raised to accommodate the increased size of the culvert that we had there. Then we then had to regrade other areas because we had to raise the road slightly. So I would say that was probably the place that had the most amount of work.
The project covers a vast area from Sunset Crest to Porter's Great House. With this many moving components, coordination was key. This project experienced unexpected issues.
The weather, for sure, was the most challenging aspect of the project. A number of rain delays when we're dealing with a lot of excavation and soil, and that tends to be problematic when it comes to the equipment and excavating wet mud or soil.
Public safety is always paramount. Planning in relation to pedestrian and vehicular traffic was fundamental on the West Coast. Footbridges and detours were necessary.
Public safety is always number one. We made sure to implement as many handrails. We had to lock off the sites and that for the public to ensure that maximum safety was, at the forefront. For our initial bid, we had to submit a traffic plan. That traffic plan was then revised once we met with MTWM on site to run the routes. There were minor adjustments here and there to accommodate larger vehicles like delivery vans and buses. But we all came to an agreement and made sure we implemented the safest, most efficient rerouting to avoid the sites.
This new infrastructure will aid in flood resilience for the Holetown area. Nevertheless, Barbadians need to remember that they too must play their part, keeping these culverts, channels and dam debris-free. Garbage and the resulting drainage blockage is one of the biggest contributors that has led to flooding over the years. Let's keep it clean, Barbados. Let's dispose of our litter correctly and help keep these areas free from flooding.